Football without fans just isn't the same thing. But because of the pandemic, many fans haven't been able to go to the stadium to see their team play in over half a year. Youcef and I are discussing the topic.
Again, with like when we talked before about when we talked about when we talk about COVID rules, that each country basically has different rules for COVID. It's the same thing, obviously, with the fans in the stadiums. Like for example, like most stadiums are empty at the moment. But then when I watched the highlights of the Champions League game last week between that Hungarian club, what's it called, Fenerbahce or something, and
Yeah.
then Juventus played there, and then somehow the stadium was like at least at 50% capacity, and I was like, I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot of them, a lot of the East European countries, because Shakhtar, Dynamo, Zenit, the Russian countries, we're seeing fans. But in most of them, I'm seeing distance. There's like two in each seat, and then there's space, so we can see that they actually they've done their rules. That they enforced the spacing inside stadiums. I think it was only the one game where I saw. I think it's the team that you mentioned from Hungary.
Yeah.
I think it was that one where there was no spacing whatsoever. They were all behind the goal, weren't they?
I saw the stadium and I couldn't believe my eyes. Kind of like
Yeah.
like why would they let that happen? It doesn't make any sense. I mean,
Like the fans were wearing masks, but they were. It was a massive crowd. There was about maybe 400 people there, no spacing whatsoever. So that was crazy. If I'm right, I think in France as well, they've got some fans. If I'm not mistakenly, I think in the Rennes game, I saw some
you're right. Yeah.
distancing. PSG as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
saw.
So
I think they were almost the first, I think, country that let fans back in. I think in some preseason games, I saw it. I think in maybe like August or September, I saw some fans, and then obviously, I mean, the Bundesliga had fans for at least like the first 5 game days, but like
yeah.
very limited. But still, they had some fans in there. But yeah, obviously because of their kind of lockdown in November, they cancelled that too. But yeah, it's just once again,
But
it's
yeah,
confusing.
yeah. I was going to say like it makes such a difference even in the Champions League games. Even if you just see a few people spaced out, it actually makes such a difference to the game. You're not having that fake ambient noise. You actually have real fans. So yeah, it makes, for me personally, I think why can't they do that in other leagues? Why can't they do? I know maybe the country's not in a as good state as the other ones to allow it to happen, but why can't they do the safety? They've got a steward security there. It's controllable. If you
Yeah,
just
I mean,
have, yeah,
it makes such a difference. I mean, for us as viewers, it makes a difference because it's just not the same. I mean, it's sometimes interesting maybe that you can hear the players talk to each other and you can hear the coach yelling certain instructions, which is sometimes quite interesting. But still, I mean, for the
yeah,
players, it has to be such a difference. I mean, they're used to playing in front of thousands of fans ever since they kind of
yeah.
like like when they played like the juniors, like when they were like 16 or 15 and or they played in the like yeah, youth teams, they had some fans, but now, I mean, it's just, I mean, do they
Like
still have the same motivation? I don't know. Like, do you still have the same drive about fans? I don't know.
I don't know. The players are still celebrating, but it just looks so dry, the celebrations, because they're not celebrating to anyone. It's just crazy. Like I see them running towards the corner flag and stuff, or knee sliding, but it's not the same feeling. When you have the background, you have the fans all, jumping and shouting. The players get involved as well. It's not the same really, and I don't know. I think it would be great to see that safe sort of fans. Like what you said in the Bundesliga. I think they only had what 400 people come in, but
Yeah,
it makes a
very limited, like
difference.
very limited. Like
Yeah,
you could almost not see like, yeah, the fans in the stadium, there were so few, but yeah.
but it makes such a difference.
Mhm.
I think in Portugal as well, they've got fans in stadiums. And for example, I was watching the Netherlands versus Spain friendly.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, I heard I was watching it without the fake. fans
Yeah.
noise. And if I'm honest, I didn't enjoy the game. I didn't I didn't feel it didn't feel like a football game. Like it was missing so much. I know you could hear the players shouting and talking, but for me, that's not football. For me, fans make football.
Yeah.
It actually it makes it more exciting when you hear the fans singing, when you hear them when they score a goal. You hear the fans. It just makes such a difference to what you're watching. Um, Whereas when I'm watching like the game yesterday, I feel like I'm watching a training. When they're training at the training ground,
Yeah,
it
definitely.
just
I
looks
mean,
like
definitely, I
just
agree.
looks
Like
like that.
more and more nowadays, I just watch the games. I think I'm like basically almost on mute because, yeah, it's just not much of an atmosphere. And also, like, just without fans, like when you think about like all the big comebacks in like football, like
Yeah,
for example, like when Liverpool came back like from 3-0 down in the Champions in an epic Champions League final against Milan, like would that
yeah.
have been possible without the fans like pushing
Nah.
them and like cheering them on? Probably not, like because the fans give
Um,
so much energy.
yeah, and we saw that with the last Champions League final between PSG and Bayern Munich. Coman scores, but you don't see fans. You don't see the emotion. It just looks like a normal game of football. It doesn't feel like a final. Even when they pick up the trophy, when Liverpool won the Premier League as well, it just does not feel doesn't feel like they've won something. Obviously, they're picking up the trophy, but there's no fans. Who you're celebrating with? So
It doesn't feel
it,
real.
it
Yeah.
yeah, it's a bit surreal. All this, I think we're just used to the fans, especially us that we go to many games. It just feels very very surreal. And something else I wanted to add was you get a lot of the time, for example, commentators they'll apologize for the language. Like come
Yeah.
on, it's going to happen. Why are you apologizing?
Yeah.
There's no there's no fans, there's no sound.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're going to hear everything the players are going to say. You've got the microphone right next to them. So
Yeah, and I
that's
mean,
something else which
it's also obviously. I mean, it's usually like fans are usually important for the clubs because they like for the revenue of the clubs because they bring in a lot of money, and not just that, but it's also important for like for all the local businesses around the stadiums, like all the pubs, all the restaurants, like the vendors on the streets. Like they're
yeah,
all
I agree.
there's like a massive hit on them financially because there's no fans around the stadium either.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's that it's that pre-match vibe, that you get at any ground around the world. You always have the food going off. You have the pubs, like you said, the bars. Uh, these people are losing out, and this is affecting a lot. And it's all down to this virus. But I do think that if it's controlled, obviously now in the UK, impossible because of this lockdown. But
Mm.
before, I think they could have done safety ones. They could have had a limited amount of spaces. Give it to people. Uh, they've got this track and trace thing that they know who's had corona, who's not. So why not? Why not do it that way? They were allowing restaurants and that to do it. Why couldn't they allow um, football games? Have a limited amount. Have 1,000 people spread out around the ground.
Yeah, I think
So it's
it would definitely help like everyone, like the clubs, the players, and the fans itself. That just yeah, like even if a limited capacity, like 20% capacity, and so it should be possible. And I
yeah,
think most clubs probably like we had in Switzerland, for example, like every club here basically had their own like safety like concept worked out and paid a lot of money for it. And
yeah,
then they tried it out and it seemed to work because like the science like didn't say like that there were a lot of people actually getting infected at football stadiums, so it seemed to work out, but still like it all got shut down again. So that was obviously a big hit because then all the clubs already did pay for all the consulting work and all the like retooling of the stadiums, and then it still got shut down. So
yeah, and
without financial
yeah,
help from the government, most clubs might get into bankruptcy.
yeah, and like maybe the Premier League and all these big clubs, it doesn't really affect them if they don't have fans. They've got their revenue coming in, but What about like the lower leagues? What about like teams in League Two or League One here in England? It really affects them if they don't have fans, because that's where they get a lot of their revenue through tickets and season ticket sales. So, now they've got to rely on selling shirts and merchandise, really, because where else are they going to get revenue from fans? Because
Yeah, I mean, you can even see it, you can even see it with the big clubs. I mean, like I read that about Barcelona, that they're basically almost like going bankrupt, and they have to drastically like slash the player wages. And yeah, I mean, they cannot really even afford to buy new players. They're like even so, it just shows you, like, even such a huge club like Barcelona, that's like globally everyone knows the club, and it's a huge operation, but they like fight with that fear.
Yeah, because if we think about it, Barcelona is like a lot of big clubs in Europe. It's a tourist club, like Manchester United or PSG or Dortmund, Bayern. These teams, they're all tourist clubs. So it's not just games where they make their money, it's the whole week. They're open all day for tours, museum, especially Barcelona. It's got that whole complex around it of different sports. That's where they make their money. The Barcelona store, that's how they make their revenue. And because of this lockdown and people restricted to travel, for example, in Catalonia, they're in lockdown. They've been in lockdown for ages now. So this is really affecting Barcelona in terms of revenue, because they get loads of tourists that come to watch games or just to come to the stadium tour, and that's a lot of money they're losing out on. So yeah, it's not just games that it's affecting, it's just everything to do with clubs.
Yeah, as much as like the pandemic is like a problem for everyday life, everyday people, it's definitely like a big problem also for the sports. That, I mean, they need like a solution soon. Otherwise, the governments just need to put more and more money and help these clubs out. Otherwise, they're all get bankrupt. And then, I mean, sports is it's just a great way, obviously, to distract people from their problems. So if you don't have sports, if you cannot go to the games, then like that's just worse for you as a fan too, because you can't, like, that's just something that it's in your life. Like you know that you can go to watch a game every weekend or every second weekend. That's just something, yeah.
Yeah, it's part of people's life. Like you said, like back in March when the whole crisis occurred, you see loads of people saying, "What am I going to do now without football?" Because they obviously the season they paused all the leagues, everything, all the football. People are like, "I can't go to the pub now. I can't meet my friends. I can't do this. I can't go watch the game. That's the only time in the week where I'm not working, I go to watch a football game." And it does affect, like you say, people's mental health, really, because it's a part of them. It's like taking food away, from a baby. It's the same thing. Like it's something that people live. So yeah, not being able to go to grounds and stuff, it really, really, really affects the clubs and fans both ways.
Yeah, football without fans, it's not the same. Like it doesn't. Yeah, in the end, it doesn't feel real enough. Like it's just like almost like the results are just like it's just like a training, like a kick around on a training ground. It just doesn't feel the same. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.